Okay, this is Old Electronics Fan, and this is part 2 of my Philco 38-7. This is rather an interesting little radio. It's got some unique features that I'll get into later. But first, I want to mention what we'll be dealing with today. All of the paper caps will be replaced. I will go over replacing the Bakelite block style capacitor, and I will also give you information on it's called the Philco Library. They've got a ton of information on Philco radios. They have a section devoted to the Bakelite capacitor blocks. Each one of them has a part number, and it tells you what is actually in it. That could be very useful if for some reason you don't have any other information that can tell you that. I also want to make note of the fact that this is a 1938 radio. I had lost sight of when certain changes to tubes and sockets was made. I thought the octal socket didn't start until the beginning of 1940. But here we have a 1938 radio that is using them exclusively, I believe. So there's that, and that makes this radio 84 years old, and which makes it pretty definitely vintage. The speaker in this thing is actually in pretty decent shape, although the surround is a little bit shaky, so I have to do something to try to strengthen that. I want to mention something else. I think depending on how I edit this video, I may or may not mention this. Just in case I do leave it in and it does get mentioned, this radio surprised me because I got this working to the point where my signal generator was able to drive a signal through to the speaker on the 1400 on the 1400 station, or frequency I should say, but it would not tune in radio stations at all. And so I mentioned the thought that, well, I'm going to replace all these paper caps, but I don't think it's going to make a difference. Well, let me mention a few things. When you're dealing with vintage transistor stuff and electrolytic capacitors, it is very definitely true that when those go open, it will affect the ability of your radio to act like a radio. Now, I'm going to look at these capacitors at some point in this video, I believe. I haven't done that yet because I'm curious. There were two things that I encountered when I was working in there. Of course, I checked the resistors while I'm also looking to replace capacitors, and at least one of the resistors was over three times its value. Another one, this one right here, when I first started trying to measure this resistor, it was dancing all over the place, the value, and I wasn't sure what was going on. I tried 2 different meters. I tried using clip leads, and this thing would still not stay put, not stay stable. So that led me to believe that something was wrong with this. So, and I kept looking at this, and if you look at the end of this, I don't know how obvious that is, but it looks burnt. So, I don't know what happened, but when I took this resistor out of the radio and then tested it again, Now when I tested it the first time in the radio, one end had been lifted, so I know it wasn't the effect of other components in the radio. But once I took it out and tested it, apparently just heating it up was enough to push it over the edge. This resistor is now open. So there are a bunch of things that could have contributed to this radio not working as it ought to. There were typically paper capacitors tend to become high or become more like resistors than capacitors, and even though they might not be in a coupling circuit where there's a lot of high voltage on one side of the capacitor and low voltage on the other, having a really leaky capacitor could put a DC voltage or higher voltage where it shouldn't be, and it definitely could affect the way this radio plays. So I'm not unaware of the fact that indeed replacing capacitors and such could take a radio from not getting stations to getting stations. I haven't run into it very often. In fact, can't remember a radio where I went from not getting any stations to getting stations by simply replacing capacitors and resistors. Clearly this thing was not in good shape. I've mentioned this more than once. It looks like this thing was in a damp environment. And I mentioned as I was looking at the capacitors that some of them were looking as though they were mildewed. And this one, if you can see it, the wax is actually coming off from this one. Moisture getting into these is a horrible thing for them. They don't behave well when that happens. They do not work well. They degrade faster under those conditions than otherwise. So, without further ado, I'm leading into the part where I'm pulling out the Bakelite capacitor box. So I'm going to show you how I go about taking those apart and getting them ready to put new capacitors in. And then I actually get to see this radio playing. As you may have noticed, I'm recording this part after the part that you're about to see. But there's parts that I haven't done yet that we're going to both discover together. So without further ado, let's go on to the next step. Okay, I've taken this part out. I've put all the other capacitors in. I think I've checked all of the resistors in this already. I think I've checked all the resistors in this. Some of them were way out in value. Some were dead on. And there was a few that were on the edge. Some of those I did not change. But anyway, this is the potting material. And as you can see, it's kind of soft. So I'm just prying in there. You notice I'm prying from this end of it because this part of it is beefier and sturdier. Even then, I'm a little bit reluctant to pry against this. But as you can see, I'm already practically in there. It's the ones that I've dealt with have not been that difficult. And like I said, you just got to be careful not to pry too hard against the Bakelite, which is what this is. And I'm just slowly working my way down in there. And as you see, it's coming out pretty good. This one is no worse than some of the others that I've dealt with. I don't know how much you're seeing actually. But, you can see I'm making my way in there. Now I mentioned how the circuit diagram isn't a lot of help, or no, let me back up. The circuit diagram cannot be trusted. However, there are times when it's very helpful, and sometimes you kind of have to rely on it, like now. There are, I believe, in this box, actually, I need to find the documentation for these, because there is information on these, and there's a number. This one happens to be 3793DG, and I believe these are, my mind is going blank here. If you look up this, it will tell you the capacitors that are in this particular unit, and that's also very helpful to have. And I've got to, like I said, take a peek at that chart, which I don't really know where I put that. I have a feeling it's like a PDF, but what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to bail out on this part of the video, and I'll come back when I've got this apart. And I'm also hoping I can show you that documentation on these, because if you have a schematic that either is hard to read or you don't entirely trust, like I have with this one, it would be nice to have confirmation regarding one of these. So I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I did find, this is a different resource than I had found before, but this is the Philco library, and I think this has got pretty much everything you want to know. There's more stuff here than just these condensers, but or capacitors. But they give you part number. Mine actually is a 3793DG, but this is what's in mine, and it's got two capacitors in here, and if you go back up here, it shows you the pin layout. Now this is what mine is, because it's only got 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't know why. Let's see. Alright, so I've got, yeah, that's weird. Doesn't look like it's exactly accurate, because if you look at, alright, I didn't look at this before I put it on mine. If you look at this, these are all, there's only 3 of them, which is what these are. And this is the ground, and that's this tab, which is what this is right here. This is the ground tab. And by the way, I thought there were 3 capacitors in here. I don't know why. But this one only has 2. And while I'm talking to you about this, I don't know if you'll see this little wire, whoops, right here, right there. I cut this before I even desoldered it. It was making a straight line down to that hole, and these were soldered. The wire was closer to the metal of the connector, but I could see that the wires were going through the solder. So I took a very nice sharp pair of these, and I actually cut through the wire. That allowed me to, when I got all done digging out these guys, which is what were in there, I was left behind with these pieces of wire going up through the solder hole. So I put my hemostats on there, gripped them, because these latch, gripped them, and then this was my soldering iron to pull them out. And I'll have to clean this up a little bit. This one is pretty amazingly nice. Whatever they used in this didn't stick to the Bakelite very much. I'm not going to have much trouble at all cleaning this out. It looks pretty good already. The potting material, the tar or whatever it is, just basically slid right out after I cleaned out the middle first. I used my pocket knife and this little thing here, and those two tools work great to break up the tar and pull it out of there. So anyway, I'm going to give you a larger picture of that. So this is the site that I was just on. So if anybody wants to see this, now this library, like I said, has, where am I? There we are. If you look over here on the right, there's a whole bunch of stuff with regard to Philco on this site. Transformers, speaker field coils, you name it. So there's a bunch of stuff there. So the two capacitors that are in this are 0.015s, and these are across the line caps. And I am going to put those back on. Whoops. Alright. So I am going to put these. Okay. So this is what I took out. And you don't really, I've never bothered trying to unsolder these and pull these out with the wire still attached. I suppose you could if you wanted to. I didn't. I already know these aren't probably worth even bothering with. Just for the fun of it, I don't know if I can get a reading out of these or not. Let's find out. Huh, son of a gun. Well, .022, and these are supposed to be .015, I think. Yes. And what about this one? .021. I haven't done a quality check on them. The fact that they're overvalued leads me to believe they are probably not in great shape. So I think it's time to replace these. I'm not at all unhappy. Oh, let's see, what do I have? Do I? 0.1. I think I said 0.01. 0.01. I thought I ordered more of these. Did I not? No, I did not. Alright, well. Well, that was an oversight, but anyway, I'll come up with some capacitors that will work in this, and I will get this all cleaned up and ready to go and put back in there, and then we will see how this radio behaves. Oh, that doesn't look good. That one there. Probably. Okay. Alright, so I shall be back. I don't really expect putting these new capacitors in here is going to make this thing play any better than it did before, but I am willing to try it. Oh, by the way, the way this is put together, they got a massively long screw. I don't know why they have such a long screw, but between the Bakelite and the chassis, there's a little star washer that keeps it from moving around, I guess. So just don't forget to put that back on. I don't know how important that is, but they put it on. I think they were wanting it there for a reason, so I'm going to put it on also. And that, of course, will lock this in place a little bit more solidly, so maybe that's the only reason it's there. I'm sure it is. Okay. I just discovered a wire I missed when I was replacing that. I'm pretty sure it goes there. So I've got to remember to put that back in there too. Okay, I'll be back. Alright, well, as you see, everything's back in place. I have not run tested this yet. And the reason I haven't done that yet is the band control, the band switch it's not labeled on the case. I don't know if it was originally, but it is not now. So I found out which way the band switch, which way it has to be for AM and for shortwave. And maybe a lot of radios are kind of standard in how they do that, because on this one, rotate it to the left to get AM, to the right shortwave. Now, if you don't know that, or if you're not sure, one of the ways you can find out is from your circuit diagram, because the band switch has certain switches that change what is connected and what is either disconnected or shorted. This is kind of nice how they've done this. They have they've made note of the coils, and if you look at you got number 1 and 2. These are part numbers, and if you look at the parts list, it tells you which one is shortwave and which one is AM. Also tells you that the switch, the band switch, is shown in the broadcast position. So if you go up here, knowing that this coil is the AM coil, you'll notice that it shows you that you got 3 and 4. And if you go down here, it's those 2 wires. And you also notice that in the AM position, this switch is open. So, if I put my meter across these 2 pins, which should be these guys, yeah. So I have resistance there. Put it in the other position, and I have a short. So that's just another quick way to figure out which, oh, I know what that is, never mind. Which way is which on this switch. Thankfully, this circuit diagram, even though it's a little bit cumbersome, it's got a lot of good information, and it helps. You can figure out a lot of stuff if you pay attention to what it tells you on this and on the other sheets. There's a lot of information here. So, oh, why did you do that? Because you can. I think now I'm going to flip this on its face. We will fire it up. And now whenever I do work, especially when I'm swapping a lot of parts around, my tendency is to start out on the light bulb, for the simple reason, if you make a mistake and you short something out, the light bulb will protect this from getting roasted, and you can go and find out what you did wrong. And unfortunately, when I was putting this together, there were a number of things I did wrong. I was preoccupied when I was working on this, unfortunately. There's a wire that goes here, and even though I had written out, I actually diagrammed this just to make sure I wouldn't get it wrong. I was preoccupied, and some dirt and crud in there. I put this one over here, and I went to put the power cord on there and said, wait a minute, that's not right. It wouldn't really have mattered because this one and this one are in the same connection, but I was kind of surprised I put it in the wrong place. I wasn't paying attention. Also found out that I didn't solder this wire into place, and once again my camera helped me out to make sure that this wire did indeed go there. I was fairly confident that it did, but it's always nice to have something to verify what you think is true. So I think I'm ready. I don't see anything else roaming around in here that I should be concerned about. So let's hook this up. Power is on. Gonna start off lower. And okay. Well, I don't see anything bad, so let's move it up here a bit. Okay, well, it's showing me voltage here. And we got 27 watts. We have radio sounds. Okay. Oh. There's a very good chance that that noise you're hearing is my furnace. Unfortunately, it seems when that thing is running, it throws a lot of noise. Oh, the other thing that I figured out since it's making ragged, but this is good. This is a good thing because this wasn't picking up radio stations in the AM broadcast band. It was in shortwave, but it wasn't in AM, which kind of surprised me. But while I'm going to let that, I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. I'm actually going to take it out of bypass because everything looks good. And we're going to go up there and we're going to put this back. Okay, so now my wattage has climbed up quite a bit. Let's see what my voltage is, 114. And that's about right. This is off by about 5 volts. Okay, so anyway, the other thing you can learn from your schematic is, again, I said there's no manual on this thing. Well, I wasn't sure because there's two connections. There's a black one, a ground, a black and a red and a ground. Oh, that's the other thing I've got to do. This thing works better if you have a ground hooked up to the ground post of the antenna. But anyway, now that I know from my circuit diagram that this coil right here is AM, I know that this red connection on the back of this is where I want my AM antenna. If I want to do shortwave, then I've got to go to the black pin. And of course there's my ground. And actually, since I have this sitting here with my ground lead, let's ground it. That does go directly to ground.
Creeping to the front.
Yes.
However, you have to say at the end of stage 1 and what we saw in stage 2, Ross Chastain is dead set on maybe getting his first Cup Series win right here today. And he is not leading, folks, because of some trickeration. It's not a two-tire stop or staying out when everybody else did it. He's got a very fast race car, and they've done a great job and played a smart game. And when he's held up.
We have life. Now I have not aligned this or done anything to it. And actually it was picking up a little bit without the antenna on it, which kind of surprised me. I'm just really amazed. I doubt. Well, let's just see. Well, there's my nemesis, the hum. Okay. This radio seems to be working fairly well. Somebody told me that these are not great performance as far as reception, but it's not bad. And there are a couple of tubes in this that are a little bit questionable. One of my tube testers has replaced them. The other one says they're fine. So I'm just not sure what I may have to go see a friend of mine who's got a tube stash and a better tube tester than mine. Although I thought mine was halfway decent. I'm a little surprised, but maybe it's telling the truth. And the other one, which is a simpler emissions type, maybe that's the one that's lying to me. I'd be inclined to believe that more than that the other one isn't working properly. So the two tubes that aren't behaving very well are First Audio and the detector tube. Those tested not so hot. And with those not behaving the way you want them to, I could certainly see it not performing up to its best. This is shortwave. I'll get nailed for that for sure. But yeah, the one thing that they did tell me is that this thing does sound pretty good. It's got a nice speaker. That speaker's in really nice shape. There's a tiny little hole. I may treat the whole surround with some rubber cement just to strengthen that a little bit. And it is 70 years old or so. Is it 73? Something like that. So I am extremely happy at this point that this thing is working as well as it is. So the next thing I want to do is go through the alignment, see if I can improve it a little bit that way. I really honestly did not think replacing the capacitors, well, I replaced capacitors, I replaced some resistors, and some of the resistors in this thing were double their value. So you know there were some voltages that were lower than they should be. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I did get this thing, as you saw, by using my frequency generator and cranking it up a bit. I did get this thing to respond on the AM band, which up to that point I wasn't sure if it was responding or what I was going to be dealing with. So I was happy to see that part, but now it's behaving like a radio. Right now I've got it hooked up to the shortwave antenna, which probably shouldn't be working that well, but seems to reduce the noise. Come on. Well, cooperate, please. Yeah.
She was one of the hundreds of people who gathered at St. Michael's.
Yeah.
So Todd already about to get it with him. It's a nice snarl back there with Logano, Hamlin, and Kevin Harvick hanging on. Up front, Kyle Busch has begun to close the gap once again as he and Chastain pull away from first place with Elliott. Call it 4-car lengths separate first and second. They're a long way out in front of Chase.
Okay. So my volume control is a little noisy. Whoa. Well. Sorry about that. I'll have to edit that down. Or if you're wearing headphones, you won't like that very much. It made me jump. I'm going to play with that volume control a little bit. I had it apart and cleaned it. It seemed like it was behaving. Maybe I just need to rotate it a bit more to get it to settle down. So, next step is going to be the alignment, and we'll go from there, because I want to get into the tuning system on this, which is very unique. Some of the guys that I talked to said that to them it was just a marketing gimmick, and I guess it probably was. There are other ways of selecting channels that were simpler. I've got a small General Electric radio with push buttons, and that works pretty well. So I'll be back after I do the alignment, and we'll see if that gets us where we want to go, and hopefully my volume control straightens out. Anyway, I'll see you in a few. Well, this is not great. I ran into a problem. This, when I first cleaned it, was working pretty well, and I thought it was all set. Now, one of the mistakes I did make, and one of the things I should have known better, others have demonstrated this, and, well, let me back up and just say, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I haven't run into this kind of problem very often, although I have run into it. And I should have been, because of the pain in the neck it is to get this thing out, I should have taken some extra steps. This is my volume control, so I didn't say that. And let me show you what it's doing. It's my little I think you can, let me see. So I think you can hear. Let's just see something. Okay, so I'm just curious to see if the part. All right, I get ahead of myself, and then I have to back up and explain. Okay. And because I wasn't able to show you what I did when I cleaned this, you don't know what I did. When I was checking this out, I actually wiped part of the resistive material under here in this area. And when I did, I saw a little bit of dirt come out of there. And the thought crossed my mind, maybe I should clean the whole thing. And I didn't. The other thing is, a lot of people clean a control, operate it quite a bit, clean it, hit it again with cleaner, and operate it, to try to avoid the very problem I'm having, which is that the volume control decided to stop behaving itself. So, I was a little bit reluctant to clean on that resistance material, but it appears that maybe that's probably what I need to do. What I just did is I tried to find the section of the control that was actually pretty clean, And that's not where I expected to see that. Now the other thing I could do, try to get in here better and also see what kind of shape this is in, is there's a little snap ring right here. And I think I want to take that off. So I want to see what I'm doing. Right with this as tight to that as it is, and no openings in this. I think I'd really like to see what's going on. So let's check this out. Can I do this? Ow. Yeah. I have. Hoping this will work. Ooh. Well, Okay. Well, hopefully that goes back together. I have done this before. It has worked before. And the other thing I need to do is clean this up because it's pretty nasty. Wow. That's kind of not so good. Alright. Okay. I used my adjustable pliers to kind of scrape the bulk of the junk off. But I'm pretty sure that if I don't clean this further, this is not going to want to slide out. Okay. Oh, no, 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 no. Yeah, that's not working very well. It's grabbing at the... And if I have to, I'll just get it up as much as I can and then do. Let's see, will it let me out? There we go. I don't want you to do that. Oh. Alright, here's what we're going to do. We're going to leave it as is. That snap ring that is interfering with me getting this out of here, I think. Can I? Oh, there it goes. Alright. I'm glad I did that. There are... Yeah. Okay, I have not run into this before, but it's probably something I should have been aware of. Let me see if I can show you. I'm glad I persevered. You can see black stuff right here, and it looks like dirt. And then if you look at this, I can take this off now, probably. Are you going to come? Yes. Please. And if you look at this, please focus. Focus. Come on. No. Play nice. I don't... Well, I don't know why it's not. But there's also a ring of crud all the way around this. Is that my only problem? I don't know. But I do know I don't like that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this and then see if I need to polish it in some way. Whoops. No. I'm going to see if I can clean this first with my other cleaner. Stuff here. contact cleaner. Oh, let's see. Oh, nasty. But I think, oh yeah, it looks a whole lot better now. This radio has been played a lot. Wow. That is, well, I don't know if I can, I don't know if you'll be able to see what I'm seeing. I'll tell you what I'm seeing. There is a groove worn right there where that contact piece, wherever you are. Oh, where this contact piece was riding on it. This is a couple of little bumps on there that I guess are designed for increasing the connection point, and I guess also you only want a small point of contact because, oh, fumble fingers, because you want it to be fairly accurate as you're rotating the control. Oh yeah, that was not healthy either. Now the next thing I want to do, oh yeah, oh boy, I hope that's not bad. Yeah. Well, here in this area and over here, it's dark and looks like a collection of dirt on there. Yeah. Now let's try this one, this cleaner. Oh boy. Okay, that's not good. Yeah, this radio has been played a lot. It has some serious hours on it. Oh boy. Oh boy, boy, boy. This is not good. Well, we'll test it. Before, let me just, since I'm not saying much, except oh boy, the first time I cleaned this, I checked it with my vacuum tube VOM, because that's my preferred method for testing controls and things like this. Because a BTVM, an analog meter if you will, responds much more quickly to inputs than a digital meter does, and it does it much more smoothly. And so I like to use that when I am testing switches, checking out controls like this. I use an analog meter because it gives me a much smoother and clearer picture of what's going on with the control, whatever it might be. The switch, the control, the volume control, or tone control, whatever. And, boy, oh let me see if I can. I don't know. Let me see. Right here. Which way does this go? Yep. Yes, that's what it's doing. One of the things this does is if you turn it all the way down, the volume goes from being very quiet to suddenly being louder. And the reason is that this is a problem. And this is an indication of how badly this is worn. There's a spot right there and there that's actually been worn through by the fingers, by these fingers here. I don't, man, wow. Well, I'm going to try something and I have zero hope of working, but it's better than trying nothing, I suppose. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to use pencil lead, and I'm going to try to color in here this area with lead, hoping against hope, if I can get enough lead there, maybe, because lead's a little bit conductive, I'm hoping that maybe the lead will help provide some conductivity to the remaining resistance material that's still there. I mean, at this point I really don't have much to lose, because and how long will this last? Don't know. I do know this thing's had a hard life. Okay, so we had multiple things going on here. Oh, is this what I want? Yes. Okay. So as I put this back on, there's a little finger in the metal part, and there's a little notch here, and I'm going to line those two up. And there we go. Line up a little notch. Well, I don't think there's much more I can do with this, so I'm going to put this little clip back on, and I'm going to try it. Alright. Okay, one of the dangers with these little clips is, it looks like this one's made out of aluminum, and flexing it the way I did could mean that it's going to break. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, so this would be this way. All right. Well, we'll try that. Wow, that's significantly better. Well, okay, well, I'm debating. I have another cleaner. It has a lubricant in it. I don't know if the oxide has protect surfaces. Well, I'm gonna kind of shoot a little bit there. That's a lot better. Hugely better. Well, no more static. Come on, no, off. Alright, I didn't really show you exactly what I was doing, although maybe you could figure it out, but here's what I've got. I have this very handy little PA amp sitting back here, and I have a line going into it for testing things. And I've got my MP3 player, which you've probably seen much of. So what I did was, this is the wire coming out of my MP3, connection to the ground, connection to the tip, and then I took the white wire over to my control here, and then to the center pin of this input, and of course the ground wire goes directly from here to there. And apparently this is the way I really should do it in the future if I want to be sure that my control is working the way I want it to work. The lead trick seems to have improved this control when it hits the lowest volume, because it no longer suddenly goes from very quiet to very loud. How long that will last, I don't know. I'm not sure what's inside of this, but I don't like what I see in there, so I'm going to try to clean that out with something. Well, I don't really know how long that's going to last. It's, as I showed you, it's been really been hard used. This radio has some serious hours on it. I knew it, I could tell, because most of the tubes, if not all of the tubes, have been replaced. And I don't think, there's one tube I didn't take out, actually, when I think about it. Or is that true? Oh, no, maybe not. I don't see a single Philco tube in this, and I pretty much guarantee you that this thing had Philco tubes in it when it left the factory. Philco tells you you're supposed to use Philco parts in their radios, so for them to send it out of the factory without Philco tubes in it would be highly unlikely. Now, one of the concerns I have are these tabs. This is another reason why I wanted to test this more carefully before I put it back in the radio. There's a limited number of times you can bend these before they just go away on you. And since I'm trying to avoid having that happen, I want to, well, plus this is a pain in the neck to take out of the radio. I'm willing to do it because I want it to work, but I just really don't want anything bad to happen to this control. Okay, that still feels good. Yeah. And I'm trying not to overbend these. I just want it tight. Usually at the factory they bend these little tabs flat. On the off chance that I wind up having to take this apart again, I just don't want to overflex these and have them go away. Actually, before I put this back in the radio, we're going to test this one more time. Okay, so okay, let's see. All right. This. Well, it definitely seems to be happier. I guess we can put this in. Now you're probably wondering, well, why did I test this? I just tested it a minute ago. Well, I have this saying, Murphy was an optimist. You know, if you don't know Murphy's Law, well, you should. It's that way. Murphy is not my friend. He's not yours either. And invariably, I'll think something's all set to go, or everything's working, and because I don't take the extra steps to make sure, Murphy crops up and pops me in the chin and says, yeah, I'm still around. So that was a pretty good outcome. I'm pretty happy with that. Now the other thing that I ran into, and this is my fault also, is when I was testing this, and I don't know, I gotta remember how much I played this. I can't remember. I had to part with my sweater. I was getting too warm. I can't remember how much I played this on camera and how much I was playing with it off camera. But one of the things I did was, in fact, let me show you in the circuit diagram, because it will make more sense if I do, I think. All right. And let's see. I used to have a pointer. I don't know what I did. My red pointer that I like so much. Oh, there you are. Always hiding in me. All right. All right. Let's go in a little bit here. Here's our tone control. One of the capacitors in the tone circuit, which I believe is the one that gives you the most bass, is this one right here, 0.008. I didn't have one of those, and given what I did when I was playing with the butterfly radio, my Philco butterfly, I was a little bit nervous about putting a 0.01 in here. I thought, well, it's only 0.0002 off of this one, but that could be enough to affect the tone. And so I think, so I don't have one of those. So I decided to go poking around and see what I could come up with, and I have a, it's an 0047 and an 0033 that I put together in parallel, which will double or will add the two capacitors together. I measured this. It comes out to be 0.001, 5.0081 I mean. I'm going to try this and see if this works any better. It's one of these two. I'll have to check this out. I'm not sure if it's that one or that one. I should have made note of which one it was. It might be that one. I'll have to check this out a bit more and see if I can figure out. But anyway, so that's the other thing I want to do is see if because the bass setting on this is too muffled and it's pretty much unusable. So whatever I can do to improve that would be great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in, figure out where this has to go, and then come back and see if that made any difference. I'm hoping this stays fixed. It certainly seems to be behaving better. It's certainly working a lot better as far as not suddenly getting really loud when you turn it down low. How long that'll live, I don't know. But my pencil graphite seems to have helped. But time will tell. Anyway, I'll have to we'll have to wait and see. Well, the volume control continues to work just fine. This thing is living up to its reputation of not being a strong receiver. The only station that I can really get is this one right here, somewhere. Sounds good. It sounds really good. In a market or in a location where there are lots of strong stations around, this would be a really nice radio to have. It does definitely have a nice sound to it. I experiment. I've got my AM transmitter here. So it definitely sounds really good. One thing I do want to mention is that I made another mistake. Probably not that surprising now. I mentioned that I thought that. All right, let me back up. All right, this is the connection point on the back of the radio for the antenna. The red side of the red lead on this goes down, goes over, and goes into the AM coil here. Now, the part this lead goes straight down to chassis ground. What's really intriguing about this, and something I didn't pick up on at first, I think I just thought, well, this is AM, this is shortwave, because this is shortwave and AM radio. But here's where it gets really interesting. You see these A2 and A1, hopefully. Now, let's move in a little bit. All right. Okay. So we've got A2 and A1. I believe that is one of the, oh yeah, here they are. This is the band switch right down here. So when this, and this is shown in the broadcast position. So when it's in broadcast, these two contacts are, these two, yeah. This is shorted, A1 that's shorted to A2. Move it to shortwave, and now I'm assuming this would then be shorted and this would then be opened. And I've been staring at this, trying to figure out, well, why do we have two grounds? We got this ground, and this is a ground, basically. And so I'm still not entirely clear. It would seem, though, yeah, I don't quite, because if you follow this, it goes down, goes through this coil, transformer actually, and when it's in short wave, this is shorted together, so that takes that coil out of the circuit. Understand that. They're changing the frequency response of a tuned circuit by taking this coil out of the circuit. Then they unshort this one, which then means that now you've got this coil, this transformer completely, and you go to ground. And that makes sense to me also, because now you've added this coil. You're retuning the front end of this radio to receive different frequencies, the higher shortwave frequencies. Now, because of the changes you've made to these two transformers, now you can receive the higher frequencies. And with this short out of the circuit, with this not shorted, then this coil then functions. So that makes sense to me too. The only thing I don't understand is why they have this connection here. Because whether you connect it here, or you connect it down here to this ground, these are both chassis grounds. This is a chassis ground, this is a chassis ground. So it really doesn't, as far as I can see, matter whether you connect here or here. So I'm just puzzled why this wire is even here, why this connection is even here. And I haven't played around with connecting between here and here. The only other thing I can think of, actually, as I consider this, and this might be what's going on. Here's my theory. This radio behaves better when it's grounded to something. Back in the days, they would ground this to the steam radiator or something, that the water pipes or something that would lead back to an earth ground. Of course, nowadays we have our 3 plug connectors for our AC outlet, and you've got a ground that you can get to that way. So here's my thought, and I might try that just to see if this makes any difference. I doubt it will, but I'm going to try something. I'm going to ground this. I'm going to, well, I don't have an antenna to put across this, do I? The only thing I've got is that little AM. Oh, what the heck? We're going to experiment a little bit. I highly doubt. This is a little cheapy AM antenna that goes with a lot of modern radios that still have AM. my surround sound system has a radio in it, and it had one of these that it came with. I actually swiped it. I actually swiped this from it, and then found another one at a tag sale. But I never use AM on the sound system that our TV is hooked up to, so I guess it doesn't really matter. So the thing that I want to do now is, all right, so I've got the ground. I already have this. I already have the ground connection. This is already grounded to earth ground. Now we're going to hook this up. One lead to the red wire. And given how this thing just doesn't perform all that well, and it was a warning that it won't, I'm betting that this won't work as well as it did when I was using the long wire antenna I've got. But what the heck, it doesn't cost me anything to experiment, and I like experimenting because I can learn stuff. Making mistakes, I learn stuff. Anyway, so let's see, that should be there, and that could be there. Okay, oh, and I turned you off, didn't I? That's bad. So I think I've already forgotten what I just said. So if I said this before, pardon me for repeating myself. I took out this 0.01 capacitor and replaced it with that 0.0081 capacitor that I made up. And I think it did help I believe it did help the tone a little bit. The bottom range is still too low, but it's oh, I might have some dirt on my tuner. I'll have to clean that. Whoa. Well, that sounds nice. Well, I can kind of hear a station in there, which I couldn't before. Well, it works. Trying to get something there. I was trying to get that one. At nighttime, I can get a station there. It's foreign language, and there's usually other stations down in here I can get as well, but not today. Well, now I know that normally with radios with built-in antennas, that the antenna is part of the tuned circuit. That you've got the antenna and then you've got this part. So it's it's something that's designed specifically to work together. This it's just a basic, very simple little AM antenna, kind of a generic, and you find these all over the place. They're just, that's the antenna they supply now with anything modern that has a separate antenna. If it doesn't have a built-in antenna, that's what they seem to give you. And my surround sound system is probably 20 years old now. Still works great. I don't have any desire to replace it. So that was kind of I think this actually received a little bit better using this little antenna. Of course, it's directional, so that helps a little bit, than it did with that long wire antenna I had. So there might be something to hooking this up the way I thought to do it. Ground this to an earth ground, have an antenna that connects between these two. Seems to work, even using something this basic. And I bet if you had something like this in an area where you have stronger, more stations, stronger stations, that would probably work great. So I'm just a little surprised, but hey, that's kind of neat, actually. My next thing I want to do with this radio, and I'm not sure, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the first two parts of this radio, or the first two videos on this radio. Oh, actually, no, I'm not going to do that yet. Well, yes. So I'm going to post the first two videos on this radio. The third one will be on the case, and I'm hopefully going to be able to show you how that turned out, if it goes well. I will also have to look into see if I can get a replacement glass for this. Because I think you can get these two rings apart, so you can get to that. But before, okay, so there's that. Let's look at the tuning system on this. Let me see if I can swing this around without doing any harm to stuff. All right. Yes. Okay. I don't think. Yeah, okay. Fine. Now. Okay. I'm going to zoom in a little bit again, because I don't think you can see what you need to or should. Am I in the right spot? Yes. Okay. This is part of the tuning system for this radio. And let me get to something. Let's see. There, okay. Yeah. You heard the sound go off. Let me move this up. There's a switch here, and there's a switch down here. And you'll notice when you push this all the way in, it shuts the sound off. Now, if I go up here, when it lines up with a cone, it positions it where it belongs and the audio comes back. And if you pull it all the way out, now you can swing the thing all the way around, and it does so quietly. Kind of a wild setup. So these cones that you see here, there's a special tool that goes through the hollow. This shaft is hollow, and there's little flats on either side of these. Right now, because they're all rusty, I doubt they would move. But what you can do is you can reach the tool through this shaft, rotate this, move this little cone around till you have it about where you want it to be, where you have a station that you want to remember, and then you tighten it up. And now when you swing it over somewhere near the station, when you slide it on there, it lines up. Oh, it's almost near my main station. And you'll notice that if I push this all the way in on a cone, you still hear the audio. At least I hope you can. But if I go beyond the cone and I do that, it shuts the audio off. And so the other thing you can do is you can shove this all the way in, you move it around till you see a cone, slide this out and drop it in, and now you know you've got it. And you can leave it set there and just, or if you want to adjust it, then you just pull this out, and then you can use this fine-tuning dial to do that. Now, when I got this radio, this didn't have a rubber piece on the back. All this is an O-ring. I went and bought a variety pack of O-rings, and fortunately it had one of these, one of the size that I wanted in there. And all this does is ride on the ridge of this right here. And I was reading up on these a little bit, and there are, let me think, 3 or 4 of these, or 3 or 4 radios that use this chassis. And there are variations. There's a 38-8, I think a 38-9, and then they have after it an X or a T or C. And what the different, so this is the desktop version. They have one, it's a console, an upright console style, but they put everything up to the very top and they angled it. And their advertising said that this allows you to tune it without bending down to tune. So the controls, of course, are all on the very top and it's angled. So I have a Silvertone console, which I'm going to have to look at again someday. It's not playing well again, still. Well, no, it was playing okay at one point. Now it's decided to pick up only one station, kind of like this is doing. But this, I'm pretty sure, I went back through and checked the alignment, and as far as I can tell, this is where it's supposed to be. This just is not a very powerful radio as far as receiving stations. Now at night, when it, I think I started listening to this last night around 6, and it was doing a whole lot better. There were a lot more stations. Still kind of noisy, still not great, but it was picking up a whole bunch of stuff from about here all the way up into here. But during the day, not so much. So that's kind of where the AM broadcast, or the AM transmitter would come in. If you wanted to listen to this, it's a nice sounding speaker. It sounds really good. So if you wanted to listen to music through this, you bring out your AM transmitter and your music source of choice and let it rip. So that's basically all I really wanted to show you on the concentric tuning is what I think which I believe they call it. Is that what they call it? I think that's what they call it. Yeah, cone-centric. Yes, if I can talk. Cone-centric automatic tuning mechanism. All right. I did kind of cut off rather suddenly, but I decided that I wanted to move that content to part 3 of the video. So, but I thought I'd take a few moments to look at the components I took out of this. because I mentioned that I was rather surprised that that radio went from not receiving stations to suddenly receiving stations. And maybe that's just because I haven't had enough experience with this, that I haven't run into this more often, and maybe I'll run into it again. But let's do this. I want to, first of all, I want to show you the resistors. And, alright, this is supposed to be a 1 meg. Body and dot. So those 1, 0, and 5 zeros. So that's 1 meg. And this is .14 thereabouts. So it's over 3 times the value it's supposed to be. So that would affect things rather negatively. And this one, oh, that's only double the value. Son of a gun. This one is open. There's no point in even measuring this one, because it's dead. Oh, wait a minute. Now it's not dead. I just checked this, and that's weird. Okay. It went from being dead to actually giving me a measurement. Green, orange, brown. So 553. I gotta look at my schematic diagram here. What I do with you? Okay, everything back here. I don't remember. Oh, over there. I think this is the one that was connected to the volume control. It was. Yeah, this was connected to the tap on the volume control, and it says it's supposed to be 51K. So body and the okay, yeah, that's right, 5-1. All right, and we've got 74K. This thing was flaking out so badly. It was reading up to 184K, and it was bouncing all over the place. I couldn't really get a value out of it. I took it out of the radio. I tried measuring it. It said it was open, and now it's decided it's going to tell me that it's 74K. That one is just weird. I don't know. Regardless, it's dead. So these two, I believe this is the one that almost cooked my output tube. I believe this is the coupling capacitor. I think. I'm not sure. Well, let's see. Doesn't really matter. So I hope you can see. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully. Yeah, we'll move in a little bit. Alright, so here is one of the .015s. There's 2 of them in this radio that I took out. And I really chopped that one kind of short. So this is 25 volts. It's already shorted. 150 volts, bang, it's dead. So at 25 volts on this tester, that's dead. What about this one? Oops. Help back here, you. Oh. Alright. I'm pretty sure this was the coupling cap, and as you saw at 25 volts, it's not good. This one, excuse me, this one is failing at 150 volts. At 25 volts, not terrible. Still not good. Let's go to, and this is, yeah, it's on paper, alright. This one, and this one was a 400 volt, the other one was a 200 volt, I believe. Yes. So that was the difference there. For what it's worth, this is an 006, and so we're at 25 volts leakage, and it's supposed to be 200, so we can go there, and it fails. Also bad. Let's see. This one is, this should be higher volts, I think. 400 volts, alright. Well, let's, that one. I don't remember where that came from, but that one's absolutely dead. Totally toasted. Alright, next. I don't know if I gave myself enough. Apparently I didn't. Oh, there it is. Alright. I was curious what this one was like. And this is an 200 volt. And what are you? 0.05. Alright. Yeah, it's dead. And okay, it's still on 25 volts. Dead. All of these capacitors are horrible. Well, I guess I can see why this thing didn't want to act like a radio. It's just not good. And that one's a little bit better. This one is a, how many volts are you? 600 volts, I think. Yeah. So that made it up to 150 before it failed. And then this one is 400 volts. Okay. Really? Is that open? Wow. That acts open, and this is 400 volts. Well, I think I found it. I think I found my problem child. Can I find out where you are, or where you came from? Let's see. 006. You can look at my part list and maybe find it that way. Let's see, capacitor. What are you? Oh, that's the 008. That's the tone control resistor. I know where that goes. Well, let's see. This is supposed to be an 008. So let's go to there. 0.5 to open. That's what that means. When that goes, when that opens up like that, that means open. And I can, because if I do this, and I go here, if it's shorted and you go all the way to the top, it opens. If it's open, go to the bottom, and it does that. And this capacitor is open. Well, I can't say that that's my problem child because, yeah, it's not reading anything. Yeah, everything says open. Because this is the tone control. This, well, surprisingly, the radio, well, this would affect the tone. So I'm thinking that's not my problem for not receiving things, but none of these capacitors are all that great. So let's go back here to you. And 0.01, 200 volts, right? Yes. 0.01. And yeah, that's toast. All of these capacitors in there are not good. So this one is And I measured this, and the value is way off. This is supposed to be an 8. So let's go to, and this is saying it's open. So, yeah, 0.1 to 50. So 0.1, 0.1, right there. And up here is where, right there is where it should be reading. It's not reading anything. It says open. So that is interesting. So let's see how we test leakage-wise. All right, and this is supposed to be a 450. Oh, because it's open, it's not reading anything. Nope. Okay. So this capacitor was completely open, can't be read, it's just dead. Although my little transistor LCR tester told me that this was reading like a 0.1 microfarad. So it found something to read on this, but it was not very good. So I was just kind of interested in how things looked. Well, I guess when pretty much all of the capacitors in your radio are absolutely toasted, and you've got resistors that are double and triple value, I guess it's not too surprising that it doesn't behave very well. So, that was very interesting. I don't think any one of these capacitors is really even remotely good. I don't think any of them got past the 150 volt test. They all just are totally horrible. I don't see, I was curious to see, well, you can see it looks like water damage on that one. And one of them, maybe because I've handled them, I can't find anyone. It might be this one. Yeah, it is. One of them had fuzz growing on it, so it wasn't very good. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap up here. The next video is going to be, it's going to have to do with the case. There's going to be a little bit of a delay for that one because the weather kind of controls what I do with that. And I'm not sure what I'm going to run into trying to get rid of all the little white dots and the remainder of the finish, the clear varnish or whatever. On the top of the radio there's almost nothing left, but there's tiny little spots of the varnish left behind, and there's a bunch of white dots. I guess it wouldn't be an old radio if it didn't have white paint dots somewhere on it. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap up part 2 here, and hopefully you watched this far, and if so, thanks. And we'll get back to you when I get the part 3 completed. And I did go over the concentric tuning. When I put the radio together, I will show you the complete knob assembly and how that all is set up and how that works. Although pretty much I showed you everything, but it would be, for those who have taken one of them apart, one of these radios apart and don't remember how it goes back together, it might be helpful for you if you run into that. And I guess that's it. Thanks for watching.